Hello and welcome to the second QMS Royal Highland Showcase Industry Breakfast. I'm Mark Stephen. Obviously, it's a real shame that we can't meet up face to face with a cup of tea and a bacon roll, but we are confident that you'll find this virtual event both interesting and useful. I'm joined today by Alan Clarke, QMS Chief Executive, and Kate Rowell, who's the QMS Chair. So good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Alan, I'm going to start with you for a start. It goes without saying, the past 15 months have been unprecedented. We've never experienced anything like this before. So how do you feel that the Scottish red meat industry has actually coped with the challenges?
Thanks very much, Mark. And you're absolutely right. This has been the most surreal year that we have ever experienced. I'm going back to, say, January 2020. We had our first ever parliamentary reception where we'd had about 150 people from the red meat industry engaging with key politicians. Not long afterwards, in February, we had our first conference, which we called Meet the Future, where we had almost 500 delegates in Glasgow. And at those two events, we were setting out exactly the key issues for the red meat industry and how QMS was going to support those going forward. And then everything changed. And overnight, we had the food service market closed, exporting became almost impossible, retail consumer demand for red meat went absolutely through the roof. But the whole supply chain then really had to step up to the plate. How we work and how we do our business changed. And farmers being able to sell their stock through auction marts no longer were able to sit and watch what was happening. They were leaving them at the gate. The buyers were coming in, being socially distanced to enable them to do that. We had to work to try and get derogation on drivers' hours to try and ensure that livestock could still be moved around the country. And I have to say, I ended up learning a new language during that time. We started to learn phrases like lockdown, furloughing, new normal, self-isolation, key workers, support bubbles. And these are things that none of us expected. There was no roadmap for anybody, whether it's a government, whether it's QMS, or whether it's an industry. But I have to say, so proud of how the industry stepped up to the plate. Also so proud of how consumers reacted. Because if you look at the number of meals that were being cooked in the UK at home prior to that, that has increased almost by 20% during that time. So yes, it was challenging, but it was really heartening to see how the sector stepped up to those challenges.
It has been difficult for a lot of areas, there's no question of that, but there's an old saying about dark clouds and silver linings. Did it present in any way, shape or form new opportunities for QMS?
Absolutely. And I have to say, I just want to take a formal opportunity here to say a really big thank you to the QMS board and also to every single member of the QMS team. Because we've had to adjust to a completely new way of working. I haven't seen any of my board members now for almost 18 months. We have recruited, I think, 6 additional new staff this year. So we've all had this new normal that we're all trying to get used to. And I suppose, what we're doing today should be at a business breakfast. You were making my mouth water there in your introduction, Mark, when you're saying about the bacon rolls. I'm not sure if that was the best part of the Highland Show breakfast, but we missed that, and we missed that networking, and we've become used to a life on screens. But one of the things that we tried to do within QMS is to say, right, how can we make a difference? A couple of the things that we've done over the last year, if I thought about it beforehand, I don't think we'd ever have done this. We've ran grazing events where we've had farmers virtually, and we did it on a trial in Orkney, and we did this virtual meeting with farmers and an industry expert using technology, and it worked. Whereas before, we'd all been flying up the Orkney, bringing the expert up the Orkney, everybody come together. And yes, we will still do that in future where we get that social interactivity. But being able to still do those sort of learnings that we've done in the past with doing it remotely is really good. We've also just launched a thing that we call Farming Food Steps. And Farming Food Steps is an online learning resource which now can be used in schools with secondary school children, and it can also be used by their teachers as a learning resource to teach people where their food comes from. Now, in the past, we would have had our team, very small team, going in and out of schools every week. They then took the opportunity to design this online learning resource. And we actually think we'll get far more reach by doing that. But we've also had to keep business as usual. We've had to keep things ticking over. And for the last 10 years, we've been involved in negotiations to try and bring back some levy, which is trapped in England, back for the benefit of farmers and levy payers in Scotland. And we were delighted this year that not only were we able to get a legislative change through the UK Parliament, but we also got agreement with HDB and HCC, and also each of the 3 administrations, that we will now be bringing back every single year an additional 1.2 million in levy that previously was trapped in England, now back for the benefit of Scotland. And that's on top of the 4 million that we currently collect. So that's a 25% increase on our income for the coming years. We also have been working on a fairly major project that could really shape the future of farming in Scotland. And it's using DNA technology to identify what are the best factors for meat eating quality, and how can we then make sure that there's full traceability of our products right across the piece. And one of the other things that has been fantastic to watch as well, we quality assure 10,000 members every year as part of our assurance schemes. That's what we do. And when you're told you're in lockdown, you're not allowed to go out on farm, how do we continue to do that? And we've used it as a hybrid method, and we've been doing things remotely, and we've been doing things that we've been checking the admin side of what people do away from the farm. But that has been fantastic learning for us, because we're thinking, can we use this technology in future to make us more efficient in how we do things? And the way that farmers have embraced the technology to allow us on farm remotely to be able to see the quality of the husbandry on farm has just been absolutely amazing. So yes, there's been a lot of challenges, but I really feel that we have stepped up to the plate.
I spoke to one of your quality inspectors probably about 9 months ago, and he was telling me that how he was carrying out his job. It basically involved phoning farmers, very often in the late 70s, early 80s, explaining to them the workings of a smartphone, going through it piece by piece, and then basically getting them to move about the farm and say, right, show me the beasts, show me your medicines, show me this. He says, never once, not once did we actually fail to manage to do it. And that's extraordinary.
That is extraordinary. It sounds like us teaching my mother-in-law how to use an iPad so that my wife could FaceTime her. Yeah. But we've all had to learn new tricks. And I have to say, it really is fantastic the way that the whole industry has come together. And that's not just farmers. As you know, we quality assure the whole supply chain. So the supply chain has really stepped up to the plate as well.
Yeah. What do you see as the key priorities for QMS moving forward, going into the future?
I wish I had the crystal ball, Mark. I really do. But we are in interesting times, as been said. And it's the red meat sector is the backbone of the Scottish rural economy. It's worth over what, £2 billion annually, and supports 50,000 jobs across Scotland, particularly in some very fragile economic communities across Scotland. Now, short term, yes, we're still dealing with COVID. We're still trying to assist the food service sector to recover. And we've got a real problem in the pork industry at the moment. Our major abattoir at Brechin has had to surrender its China license, ability to export to China because of a COVID outbreak at the plant. And there's lots of short-term things that we are trying to work. But the reality going forward, the key priority for us as a sector is how then do we assist the sector to contribute to the Scottish Government climate change targets and have real sustainable red meat production in Scotland. We're different. We have very different credentials here. We have a lot of people who are anti-red meat, who are saying that we are one of the reasons why that we are having global warming. We need to make sure that we highlight that Scotch difference. And that is a big key for us going forward. We have a real opportunity this year. We have COP26 coming to Glasgow, and we will be working with our partners, not just in Scotland, but also across the UK and internationally, to get our key messages across of the real positive work that farmers do in Scotland, and that they make a difference. We also are working at the moment on our new beef strategy, Ambition 2030, we're calling it, and we'll be launching that beef strategy during this year. And we've also been contributing to work on influencing future policy in Scotland. And we've been working on the farmer-led groups. I've sat on the board of the Suckler Beef group, really to look at how we can assist farmers to get that sustainable production happening on the ground. Another key for us is we've done a real serious review of our marketing activities. And to be honest, we've done a 180-degree turn in the last 12 months. We are now targeting 18 to 40-year-olds. They are now our target market. We have changed how we're doing that marketing. It's all about social media. It's all about engaging, and it's trying to get user-generated content. So that's not us telling the world how wonderful Scotch red meat is. This is people who enjoy eating it, telling others and other influencers how good our quality products are. So another big key for us this year is trying to rebuild the export markets. COVID and us leaving EU has really been had a major impact on exports. And we're hopeful that the international trade shows that we do are starting to open up again. And we're working very closely at the moment with our key partners and identifying markets that we believe there is serious growth for Scotch red meat, and also other new target markets that we can identify and satisfy as well. And I suppose the key for us, we're very simple as an organisation. We try to do 4 things. We try to support the Scottish red meat industry, we try to develop it, we try to promote it, and we try to protect it. And those are going to be our key drivers for the next 12 months.
Kate Rowell, QMS chair. COVID-19 disrupted almost every inch of our working and personal lives. What's been the real economic impact on the Scottish red meat industry?
Yes, Mark, I mean, everything has changed, hasn't it? You know, food service has been non-existent for much of this time, and that means that supermarkets and butchers have become relatively more important in the minds of consumers where they get their food from. There's more people in their own towns, staying in their own towns, less people travelling into city centres. There's less tourists coming from abroad. People have had more time at home to cook, they've had more time to experiment, and families have been together more often, so there have been more family meals. And I think at the bottom of it, there's a renewed appreciation from a lot of people about what really matters and what is actually important in their lives. And we've discovered that food, and red meat in particular, are very much a part of that. Through lockdown, or the lockdowns that happened, more than one, people seem to progress from cooking traditional comfort meals, which they were really comfortable with, things like mince, to copying their favourite takeaways because they were missing them, and then to branching out into new recipes. So there's been a shifting consumer perception of food, but we've been trying to keep up with that. Over the period, red meat sales have increased, as Alan said. There have been some costs put into the system. For example, in abattoirs, things like social distancing and working in different shifts have meant that there have been extra costs added. But overall, farm gate prices have generally improved through the whole period, and are at the moment at very good level and looking quite strong. But we do know that can change at any point. So we do have to keep our eyes open and not be complacent. As Alan said, the whole supply chain has rallied round and really stepped up to the plate. Auction markets, hauliers, processors, everybody else who's involved in the red meat supply chain has worked really hard to get that meat on our tables. And then, of course, in the middle of it all, Brexit finally happened, and that caused more disruption, which it's very difficult to disentangle from all the COVID disruption, but there certainly is an effect there. And now, hopefully, we're slowly getting back to some sort of normality. But as has often been said, nobody really knows what that normality is going to be in the long term. And I do think of it a bit like a snow globe that you shake up, all the pieces are still in the air, and we're not really sure how they're all going to settle out. There's a lot of things in the mix there. So people are buying local, they want to support local businesses and decrease their carbon footprint. They seem to have a new appreciation for nature, and as farmers, we can address that by showing them how well we can look after the environment. is there going to be a mass exodus from the cities into the countryside as people continue to work from home? You know, house prices in my area in the countryside have gone through the roof. And more people, I think, are starting to understand that as a species, humans need to be more sustainable in the way they live. And we need to look at that really, really closely and see what we can do. And well-being is just as important to people as economics sometimes. And I think, again, the pandemic's taught us how important it is for how we feel. You know, we need to be happy, we need to be content, we need to have interaction with others. All those things have suddenly been thrown into sharp focus for us. So we will have to wait and see how things develop. But farmers are in a very, very good place to give answers to many of these questions that consumers are asking. And as QMS, and as an industry, we need to keep promoting, we need to keep educating and having those positive conversations about our sector, about red meat, about nutrition, about the environment, and about sustainability. And we need to be ready to change as things change, because the point we're at the moment is not the point that we're going to be at this time next year.
No. It's interesting because a lot of people, you know, you hear them saying, oh, we want to go back to the way things were. But some things have actually changed very much for the better. The increased interest in provenance you were talking about, the fact that people have learned to shop locally, they can see the advantages of shopping locally. Now, what can you do to ensure that customers, consumers are encouraged to carry on doing those good things, to maintain that interest in provenance, to carry on shopping locally?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the data we get from butcher shops has highlighted this, you know, and talking to butchers themselves, they've had new customers coming in the whole way through. Younger people in particular who've never been in a butcher shop before have been coming through the door, and they're really, really keen to keep those customers. So we've been working really hard on our Scotch Butchers Club. We relaunched it last year to help butchers interact to the top of their ability with these new consumers, to give them new recipes, to give them new ideas, and to sell the credentials of the meat that they supply. So that's one way we can do it. We've just launched our summer marketing campaign, and we are highlighting the barbecue season. Hopefully the weather that we've had recently will continue, and we'll get lots of barbecues out there because people are keen to meet up and to interact again. But a lot of people are also nervous about doing that indoors, and so outdoors is definitely the place to be. We're in the process of reinvigorating our Scotch Beef Club, which is the club that we run with the restaurants, and that's going to be given a whole new look. And we do need to support the food service sector to get back on their feet, because they have been one of the sectors that have been hit so hard by this whole thing. As Alan said, the DNA project that we've been doing, one of the main reasons that we started to look at that was to increase the traceability, and so provenance will play a huge part in that. If we can prove to people that Scotch beef really has come from Scotland, that could satisfy a lot of the asks that they are asking us. We do need to work to build more local supply chains and to try and enable farmers to help themselves, whether that's with abattoir provision. That's a long-term thing, but government need to be looking at things like that, and local government. All these supply chains need to be enabled as much as possible, and everybody can help. We all want to know where our top-notch sirloin steak in a posh restaurant came from. We're quite happy to ask that question, but do we also need to be asking other places? Do we need to be asking takeaways? Do we need to be asking cafes just where they're getting their meat from? Not in an aggressive way at all, but the only way that they are going to change their sourcing policy is if the customer demands it. So as customers, we do need to be highlighting that wherever possible.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. I mean, obviously in November this year, we've got COP26 in Glasgow, you know, and the world leaders are going to be coming here and they're going to be talking about climate change. And it is a sad fact that over the last year or so, red meat has been given a real kicking, you know, in terms of, frequently people point to the industry and say, you know, you're one of the bad guys. How do you change that narrative?
So we're doing a lot of work in relation to COP26. We run the Scottish Red Meat Resilience Group, and that group actually met just the other day to start putting plans in place. Well, to continue putting plans in place, because we started a while ago. What we need to do in Glasgow in November is try and showcase the credentials of Scottish agriculture and our red meat supply chain. And as Alan said, really highlight that Scotch difference, because Scotland is the perfect place to produce meat. 80% of our land is not suitable for crops, but it is absolutely perfect for growing grass, which animals can then turn into really nutritious meat. We have a generally grass-based livestock system, and recent reports are starting to show that livestock are really important for biodiversity. So alongside the climate crisis, there is also a biodiversity crisis going on, and livestock are absolutely key to helping solve that problem as well. We've also got plenty of water. We never have a shortage of water there. And the production systems that we use do mean that our carbon footprint for beef is way below the global average. We've got centuries of tradition and stocksmanship, and Scottish farmers are really ready to step up and help tackle the climate emergency. In all the conversations that I've had, farmers want to do their bit. They really do. They just need some direction on how to do it and some help to get started and to continue that process. So we are absolutely in a good place there. Consumers trust us. Consumers want us to do the right thing, and we want to do the right thing. So really what QMS are planning to do over the next year is help everybody try and get those building blocks in place and work towards it. And for COP26, showcase our fantastic credentials.
Alan, do you want to add anything to any of that?
No, I think Kate has summarised it extremely well. And as I said earlier on, sustainable red meat production will be at the heart of everything that QMS does going forward. And we'll be looking at a series of projects that we can do to really try to make a difference, but also to communicate that difference to consumers. Because as you rightly said, Mark, there is so much misinformation out there. And I'm hoping that we can work with all of our key stakeholders, with all of the industry, that we can be producing the key messages that we need to use. We've already been doing a lot of work behind the scenes in relation to getting our key messages on the curriculum across Scotland, because once that misinformation is out there, it's hard to dispel. Every council at the moment in Scotland is putting together their future food strategy. We're trying to influence that in a positive way for red meat. But we are in a good place. The last 12 months, the reconnection of local produce and food with consumers has been superb. Better than we ever could have expected in a normal year. We need now to capitalise on that.
You think we'll still be sitting here on Zoom call next year, Kate?
Oh, I do hope not. No, surely not. Surely not. Hopefully we'll get back to normal. And can I just add in that I want to add my thanks to the board of QMS, who've been so supportive. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Fergus Ewing as well, who recently stood down as our Cabinet Secretary, and he has really put in a power of work on behalf of the industry, and he has been a really good friend to us. So I just want to say thank you very much to him, and also welcome to Marie Goujon, who is our new Cabinet Secretary, and we're looking forward to working with her.
Good stuff. Well, listen, Kate Rowell, Alan Clarke, thank you both very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I said, I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it useful. I'm Mark Stephen. Thank you very much for deciding to watch this.